However, audio from the entire room is captured. In common with all narrative during council meetings, verbal responses to congratulations, obituaries and question time will not be recorded in the written minutes. By submitting a question, you consent to your question being read aloud at the meeting. The reasoning behind recording council meetings is to hold us more accountable and to improve transparency of council's decision-making to our community. The full meeting is being streamed live on council's YouTube channel, which is Alpine Shire Council, and will also be available on the YouTube channel shortly after this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy. I now invite everybody to stand for a recognition of all people. The Alpine Shire Council acknowledges the Tongarong peoples as the traditional owners of the lands on which we are meeting today. Council also acknowledges all of the traditional owners of the wider lands of the area known as the Alpine Shire. We also acknowledge those people who have contributed to the rich fabric of our community and strive to make wise decisions that will improve the quality of life for all. Thank you. Item 3 is confirmation of minutes, and the recommendation is that the minutes of M3 of the 30th of March 2026 as circulated be confirmed. Councillors, moved by Councillor Byrne, seconded by Councillor Anderson. Councillor Byrne? Councillor Anderson? No. We'll take this one to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried. Thank you, including with Councillor Graham, who is online, which is terrific because turn up. The next item is item 4, which is apologies, and we have an apology for in person for Councillor Graham. He is in Melbourne looking after his wife. And we have a late apology from Councillor Tanzan, who last I heard was in a truck with his car on the back of the truck going, I think, to Wangaratta to get the car fixed. So he was trying to get here and hopefully he will get here before the end of the meeting, but we don't know. And there are no further apologies. Item 5 is obituaries and congratulations, and I'm going to start on my left with Councillor Smith.
No, nothing today.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson.
I'd just like to congratulate the Bright Community Fun Run that was held on the weekend on Sunday morning. It was a really good event, well attended. I ran and I'm still sore, and big congratulations to them. Great event. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. I look forward to hearing how many funds it made for the school.
Yeah.
Councillor Ronco.
Yes, I have been a very busy month in the Alpine Shire and for our community. And I would like to commend the great work done by some community groups, especially around Bright. So the Alpine Cycling Club will organize Alp the Buffalo with over 120 young riders with their family. The Rotary Club of Bright with their Easter market, or the local RSL sub-branch in Bright, Muttleford and Mount Beauty to organize once again a very moving and well-attended Anzac Day ceremony. Wounded Knot Festival Committee and the Bright Autumn Festival Committee to put great events for everyone, our residents, our families and our visitors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ronco. Thank you, Councillor Byrne. I wanted to congratulate the Wounded Knot Festival organisers in particular, only because I spent so much time there. It was absolutely terrific. A really good mix of visitors as well as community people, and the same, local people with stalls and not so local people with stalls, but very well appreciated by everybody I spoke to who was there. So well done, committee. We will move on to item 6, which is declarations by councillors of conflict of interest, and I will invite Mr Jeremy to declare any conflict he might have tonight too.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to confirm our conversation earlier, I'm declaring a conflict in relation to item 8.3.7, which is the independent member CEO for the CEO Employment and Remuneration Committee, and I'm declaring a conflict on the basis that this directly relates to my employment contract with Council.
Thank you, Mr Jeremy. And Councillor Anderson has a conflict.
I'd just like to declare a conflict of interest for point 2.4, which is the Alpine Shire Council Animal Power, which is a general conflict of interest. Is that enough information?
Thank you very much to both of the people who have responded. Any further conflicts of interest? No, and we all know that if you suddenly think you've got one, it's a good time to declare it right then. Item 7 is public questions. We will start with questions on notice, of which we have 2 from the same person, organisation, and I can see there's some representatives here in the audience tonight to hear the answer. And then we will take questions from the floor, and just remind everybody that it is no more than 2 questions at any one meeting. Thank you. So, let's have a little sip here. So the question has come in, or there's a two-part question from Amanda Hoare from the Bright and District Chamber of Commerce. Questions are: we acknowledge Council's position that it does not directly determine the investment decisions of private businesses, and we appreciate the constraints within which Council operates. However, we also recognise that Councils play an important role in shaping the conditions, confidence and attractiveness of a region for investment. With this in mind, we seek clarification on the following. Clarification of influence and role. How does Council see its role in influencing the attractiveness of Alpine Shire to prospective investors, particularly in promoting the region's strengths, reducing perceived barriers and building confidence for businesses considering locating or expanding here? And part 2 is practical support and partnership. Within existing resources, what actions is Council willing to take in partnership with the business community to more actively present Alpine Shire as an attractive place to invest and to support businesses through the decision-making and establishment process? So we've had a bit of a chat about this in our briefing session earlier today, and we decided that it was appropriate for Council to answer this question rather than Council officers. But of course we have talked it through with Council officers and have an understanding of what's already in place. So, and I'm going to try and answer those 2 areas separately, but they sort of merge. So bear with me. So Council has a very strong role in infrastructure, putting infrastructure in place and making sure that it's appropriate for purpose. We have a very strong role in strategic planning. We have, and of course, statutory planning. We have a huge catch-up in strategic planning, which we are undertaking currently, which will provide surety for the decisions that support investment and will underpin clear, consistent messages into the future. So I think that picks up some of the perceived barriers, and it also picks up building confidence, because statutory planners can then make decisions because they've got something to make the decision against. So it's quicker and easier. It's also important to recognise that we've been putting improvements in place to assess all development or investment proposals. And we have now a planner in residence, and we also have an experienced senior statutory planner who's allocated to business applications, who can work through with the people who put in business applications with the special skill of having experience in that field. The other part of the question about within existing resources and partnership with the business community, in our discussions we recognise that we have a refresh of the economic development strategy coming up, and I spoke with you about this last night, Amanda, that's a really good place to identify outcomes that are sought and then work out what the partnerships are to achieve those outcomes. So we recognise that there's a really strong push from the Chamber, particularly in this part of the Shire, to have Alpine Shire more involved in investment, and while we deliver that an investment strategy, and while we're building the next doing the renewal of the eco development strategy, that's the time to build that into the process. So I watch this space because we don't have a date on that at this point in time, but I can assure you that you will be well engaged when we get started on it. So I think one of the really important things about that is that we work together, facilitate partnerships, work out who Alpine Shire, who the chambers can work with. It might be Regional Development Victoria and do something across the region rather than shire by shire to really, I don't know what it is, but there's all sorts of options that we need to be talking about together. So that's where council is. I just wonder whether any councillors would like to add something or anything to what I've said. Pretty happy? Okay. So, was that slow enough?
So they've only asked 2 questions.
Yeah.
There's 3 of them. They've got formal questions.
Okay, yeah, well, you can. You can ask questions from the floor, absolutely.
Marcus and-
Yep,
and,
yep. So,
Scott.
yep, Amanda, you've asked the question, and the other 2 can ask. Well, I answered what's written in this one, what you sent in.
The questions regarding how you support development and investment is all around permits. What do you do before a person puts in a permit? What is council's role in supporting anyone that wants to seek guidance or support regarding investment before they touch statutory or strategic planning?
We have a business concierge service that provides that advice on the pathways.
So we have a business concierge that provides the advice on those pathways through our planning system. Okay. We have a business concierge that through the planning department that works with people through that process, and you can have a pre-planning meeting lined up with the business concierge. So that's the way forward that we have in place currently.
Yes, also it was the pre-draft budget committee submission. So now I think tonight we will have the draft budget, and it's the time also to present any submission that you want and to better understand the issue. So yeah, so that's coming again this month. So you want to follow up, so it will be this month.
So just to clarify on what you just said, so if we've received a
I got fucking weird shit happening here.
we can resubmit it through the draft process for consideration. That's how I've just interpreted what you just said.
Yeah, but the thing is now it's the draft is public, so you need you see all the budget, all the allocation, and after we like every resident and every business, so you could ask some question and submit your question.
So if the budget is voted through tonight, then it will go out for public consultation, and that's when you can put some more feedback in. Yep.
That has received a not going in the budget, which is, we understand.
Yep.
So you just said we can resubmit that for a further consideration. That doesn't quite make sense if you were resubmitted.
It's your choice to resubmit it or not, but it's open for resubmission. That's when it goes out for public consultation. People can submit whatever they want. So, yep. Okay. Are there any further questions from the floor? Mr. Dyer, please step up to the mic and turn it on, and we might be able to hear you better if you've got your helmet on, and you might be able to hear us better if you've got your helmet off.
I'll keep the helmet on, but my hearing is very what it just I got 2 questions. I got a letter from Will about question time. Well, that's one thing I want to talk to Will about. But the Shire is supposed to preserve water. Down at Pioneer Park, the toilet block there has got 3 hand basins there in it. And I know 2 of them anyway. I didn't check the 3rd, but when I walked in, there was a lot of water around all the hand basins, and I'm thinking, what's going on here? When you push the tap down, which is supposed to run for, 10 seconds or something like that, it's running, but it is that hard that it's splashing water all over you. and that's the reason why the water is right around the hand basins. Now, the ones in Jubilee, the one on the left didn't work for nearly 3 or 4 months, and the one on the right is that hard when you press it down, it splashed water over you too, which is still doing it now, but the one on the left is working okay. A lot of times, the soap container in that one at Jubilee Park, there's one soap container. There's 3 soap containers in the one at Pioneer Park. So maybe looking at the odds and differences, but there was another issue, and Councillor Gareth Graham will understand this one. We're coming up winter, and I think we spoke about this last year. Behind the the doors in the toilets, I would say Brighton, Myrtleford and Mount Beauty, because there's nowhere to put a jacket or a hat or anything else when you go to the toilets. So that's something that really needs to be looked into, especially the disabled toilets, so they can hang things up. Now, that's the toilets. The second question is, will you make sure that gets looked into? Because I can't ring up Triple X and report it, because I have a phone, but it's only a limited phone as to telephone, and at the moment I can't find it anyway. I lose it quite often.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr Dyer. We've taken note of your inquiries. We'll follow up with the team and have someone go out and have a look at those.
Be well appreciated. It's wasting a lot of water, and it's also a pain when you get water all over you when you try to wash your hands. The second question is what I've spoken about nearly 3 times now, about the trees that have been cut down in the Alpine Shire. Well, I started with Myrtleford area. I think I asked twice as to the amount of trees being cut down in the last year and a half. The third time was the whole Alpine Shire for a year and a half, because I want to compare the differences. Well, I haven't heard anything or anything been done about that, so I'm asking for the 4th time now, which even beats the recycling. Sarah, as you knew what happened in the previous council, where I said that the recycling, I didn't think any of the recycling was going into the recycling, and it took 3 months before, or 3 questions at a council meeting to that. Well, this is the 4th time about, I would like, for the last 2 years now, because it's been well over 6 months, I've been saying this for a year and a half, that the amount of trees have been cut down and where in the Shire. I think it's quite simple. The computer's made it easy for you.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Mr Dyer, I recall writing to you about this specific topic.
The trees.
Yes, Mr Dyer, on a couple of occasions. What I explained in my last letter is that we are not going to deliver what you're asking for. We are not going to provide you with a list of all the trees and all the details. And the reason is because of inequitable use of Alpine Shire Council resources. We have a limited team of resources and we have lots of obligations and responsibilities, and it's inequitable to be providing that level of service to one resident with no defined outcome when that takes away resources from other members of the Alpine Shire. So what we explained to you is we're happy if you've got a discrete tree that you're particularly interested in, we're happy to provide details of that tree if there's something that's specifically interested in you, but we will not be responding to a generic request to provide data on all the trees across the Alpine Shire. Further to that, I do remember in my letter outlining to you, if you're uncomfortable with the advice you've been receiving from the Alpine Shire, I outlined to you clearly the options for you to take a complaint through the Ombudsman to explain that the service you're receiving from the Alpine Shire isn't meeting your satisfaction. That remains my advice today. I'll state for the record, we are not going, as the organisation, we are not going to respond to your request to provide you with details of all the trees in the Alpine Shire that have been taken down. However, we remain happy if there are discrete trees which are of particular interest for you, we're happy to follow those up and provide you with whatever details we have on those discrete trees.
I think that's wrong, Will, because number one, any tree in the Alpine Shire has a right to stay up, and we've got to have shade, and we don't have much shade in Myrtleford at the moment. And I spoke to you nearly 3 years ago now, and my words were under-pruning the trees on the approaches to town. That has not been done. Apart from when I spoke about a council meeting a few months ago, if you have a look at the roundabout at Porpunka now on the Great Alpine Road, it's an absolute disgrace. Who is responsible for under-pruning those trees as you're going around the roundabout? Vic Roads or yourself? It's in the 60k. Now, when it comes to trees, it's very serious. when I have a mayor turn around and say to me about the pin oak that was cut down in Coles car park, that was nearly 100 years old, 90 years old, his words to me were, the tree's cut down. What are you going to do about it? That's not the thing of a mayor.
Through you, Madam Mayor, if I could respond, Mr Dyer, we understand that trees are very important to you and trees are very important to the team at the Alpine Shire as well. However, we also disagree with your position, and it's okay to have a disagreement. And what I've outlined to you is the opportunity for you to take your disagreement into an independent organisation for them to have a look at what council's doing. And that's the Victorian Ombudsman. Their role exists for them to take complaints about organisations like the Alpine Shire Council where customers are unhappy with the service they provided. What I'm telling you today is, from my perspective, we've reached the end of the road about this discussion about all the trees in the Alpine Shire. We know you value trees, we know you've got a specific interest, but from my perspective, your request would result in inequitable use of Alpine Shire Council
No, Will,
resources.
you're wrong. You're totally wrong. I'll tell you why. We don't go to the Osmond. We haven't even talked yet. When was the last time you and I spoke at a meeting? 3 years ago. And there's a lot of things to talk about, especially what happened last council meeting and this one. And you talk before you go to arbitration.
Thank you, Mr Dyer.
You try to anyway.
The microphone turned off.
Are there any further questions from the floor? Nope. There's no further questions. We will move on to item 8, which is presentation of reports by officers. And 8.1, Mr Will Jeremy's reports.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So report 8.1.1 relates to contracts which are approved under delegation by the CEO. So just to remind the audience and councillors, these are contracts which have been awarded where the value is lower than the $200,000 plus GST delegation, beyond which it needs to come to council for a decision. So this month there are 2 capital project contracts which I'm reporting to council which have been awarded under my delegation. The first one is a wide area mower, so that's a bit vague, the description, but if members of the public have seen those very large lawn mowers that scoot around largely the town entrances, so very wide, hence the title wide area mower, that's one of these. The tenderer who was successful is Ag Power and Transport from Lilydale in Victoria. We established a budget with council at the start of the year of $150,000, and the contract was awarded for $145,000 and $145,450. So that was the first contract, and that was by a public RFQ process. The second contract that was awarded was for a trailer-mounted drain cleaning unit. Successful tender in this case was Enviroline Group Proprietary Limited from St Mary's in New South Wales. We established with council at the start of the year a budget of $150,000. The contract was awarded at $132,332.32.
Thank you, Mr Jeremy. Councillors. Moved Councillor Smith. Seconded Councillor Anderson. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask, with this mower, is this adding to our assets, or has there been a trade-in involved? Or is it just adding to our existing mowers for the outdoor spaces? This is just an extra. We're not getting rid of something else.
Sorry, I had trouble getting the microphone on. Thank you, Councillor Smith. We are retaining the old mower, and this is adding to our fleet, and that's so as not to increase our renewal liabilities, so we will run the existing one to end of life.
Yep, thank you. I think the outdoor spaces do an amazing job around the Shire, and I think they should be congratulated, and this makes it even better for the work they do. I know they're on a pretty hectic time frame to do their rounds, but if this makes it even better, but they do an amazing job, I think it should be known as well. So,
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Anderson.
Just a question about the trailer-mounted drain cleaning unit. It's not something we've had before. We're not replacing a unit. This is what have we been? I guess have we been hiring one out? What's the go?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Yes, this is the first drainage cleaning unit that we've purchased. We previously relied upon contractors to complete all our drainage clearing. Then we hired a unit for a period of a year and a half to trial it. As it turns out, we have the capacity internally to utilise the unit ourselves. Given the amount we used to pay to contractors for the work, it's got a very short payback period of about a year and a half, so well worth the investment, and it'll last for around about 14 to 15 years life and can be towed by a ute as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Ronco.
Yep, and just for these two large plants, what will be their lifetime and depreciation?
So for the wide area mower, I believe it's around about 18 years. For the drainage unit, it's 14. I don't know the depreciation on the mower, but I can find out for you. I'll take that on notice, Councillor Ronco, but it's around about 14.5% for the drainage clearing unit.
I think, yep, it's good investment too in a new asset, and yep, thank you.
Saves us quite a considerable amount of expenditure.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco and Ms Buckley. Councillor Byrne, questions? No. Councillor Graham, any questions?
Negative. My question's been answered already.
We
Thank
can't
you.
hear you.
Sorry, my question has been answered already.
Perfect. Thank you. We'll take this one to the vote then. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Item 8.1.2. Mr Jeremy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the purpose of this report is to seek Council's endorsement of a suite of key priority projects and initiatives, which is intended to guide Council's advocacy campaign leading into the 2026 state government election. So the importance of advocacy is well recognised by Council, and it's actually captured in the Council plan, where it's stated we have a strong and informed advocacy position to influence outcomes that are outside our direct control and are important for our communities, economy and environment. We've seen a good opportunity ahead of us, which is the 2026 state government election, and it's a good opportunity for strong targeted advocacy, which is aligned with some clearly defined priorities. Hence this report being put to Council to distill from the various strategic documents, the Council plan with its supporting action plan, and the other documents which have been adopted by Council, as well as the work that the capital projects and strategic planning team have done on a prioritised list of investment projects for Council, in infrastructure investment projects. So the purpose of this report is largely to distill what's in those key strategic documents. It's followed quite a bit of engagement with councillors, as you're aware, to try and understand that the recommendations are aligned with where the community's interests lie. And we're basically putting forward this recommendation to Council this evening in order to give both Council and the organisation a really clear steer about where we should concentrate our efforts into the state government, into the opposition and into other candidates for the upcoming election. So I've got a recommendation there, which is that Council acknowledges the strong and coordinated advocacy in the importance of strong coordinated advocacy in fulfilling Council's role as a representative of and an advocate for the Alpine Shire municipal community. I've listed from A to G a number of proposed priorities, and the last recommendation is with the support of the executive team that Council prioritises its advocacy efforts over the coming 6 months through proactive engagement with the government, the opposition and candidates. And what I'm proposing at this point, rather than reading through the proposed priorities, I'll leave it open to Council perhaps if there's any of the listed priorities there that you'd like to explore in a bit more detail and ask any questions about. We're very happy to run through to make sure that the scope's understood and what Council's ask of the government is likely to be in each of those cases. So I'll leave the recommendation at that point with Council and open the floor for conversation.
Thank you, Mr Jeremy. Mover in a seconder, please. Councillor Byrne, Councillor Ronco. Councillor
Byrne. Well, can you confirm this is the first time we've taken a formal advocacy position? And secondly, how were the projects selected to be pushed through to the ministers?
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Great question. So I can confirm this is the first time we've taken this approach with Council in my time here in Council, so that's in the last 10 years. It's the first time we've got to a position where we've presented a essentially a short list of prioritised projects. And I think the reason that we've been able to do that on this occasion is because of the work we've done around strategic planning, the prioritisation work that the capital projects and the strategic planning teams have done, to really look at where is the need in the community, what is the future life of the facilities and the assets that we've got, and to be able to distill down from a capital project perspective where are the priorities, but also the work that we did, the deliberative engagement around the council plan, the action plan that's been put together that sits behind that has made it transparent for us and easy, relatively easy for us to pull out what are the top priorities. So Councillor Burney will be aware we have lots of conversations with councillors and advocacy comes up all over the place. So council could be advocating across very, very many areas. But the intent of this report is to say, OK, we've got a specific opportunity coming up. It doesn't mean we drop the other advocacy priorities. They're all equally important. But specifically for the upcoming state election, what are the things we'd like to really push hard and see if we can get up in front of the various politicians? Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Ronco.
Just did this advocacy policy will continue after the state election and maybe even be reviewed if we need?
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. So this is the first time we've taken a position here of trying to really distill what are the key priorities. These are really linked into state government, the state government's budgeting and the priorities of the state government. What I anticipate as we head forward is we get opportunities through the Commonwealth Government to do the same. We get asked each year to provide input to try and influence the outcome of the Australian government's budgeting process. And I think there could be an opportunity down the track to have another paper like this as we head towards probably later in the year to influence next year's Commonwealth budget. But I think if this is an approach which lands well with council and lands with the community to be able to provide this kind of clarity, then perhaps it's a model we could seek to keep going into the future. We would look to refresh. Look, hopefully, as we achieve some of these advocacy priorities, we can take them off the list and see what the next priorities on the list are. So it feels, from my perspective as an officer, that it's an evolving list. We take a line in the sand at this stage, but then it'll evolve into the future. And the community is certainly welcome to provide input to help to influence what is flagged as a priority for council into the future through the various engagement campaigns that we run.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, other councillors, question or comment? No. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Will the Alpine Shire advocacy priorities be given to all candidates contesting the Ovens Valley electorate before the November election, as politicians seem to change their seats on a fairly regular basis?
Thank you, Councillor Graham. The answer is yes. So we intend to engage with the current government, with the opposition, with any member or any potential member of Parliament who we think has potential influence into the future. We're working in the background on what the specific campaign looks like, and I've got a meeting later in the week with the Mayor to try and work out where do we start the pitch, but certainly the intent is anyone who could potentially have influence into the future on the outcomes of the Alpine Shire, we want to be in front of them with our list of priorities.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions from councillors? I'd like to just pick up some of the items and particularly link it back to the infrastructure and, in particular, infrastructure that supports the Alpine Shire being a great place to invest. We talked last night, for those of you who were there, it was a business meeting to look at tourism and event strategy. So it was the first one of a rollout of a significant consultation across the Shire. And there was a question about an adventure hub, and quite a number of these reflect exactly that. They're about transport links, active transport links, so cycling and shared pathways. It's about identifying really nice places to go, so they're celebrating Wandi's heritage. Myrtleford Sports Hub's more about a sports precinct, but certainly lends itself for team sports, if we can get it off the ground. And then the Future Ready Bright Master Plan is about making sure that the space around Bright structure planning, making sure the space is ready for the future. as the name it suggests. But it's really important to get that work in place and get the Alpine Shire to be a nice place to invest. So that's just part of it. It's also for the community to use and enjoy. So I think it's really, it ties in well with the questions and what we're doing with the tourism and event strategy. And I also wanted to pull out some of the ones that are really largely advocacy about access to primary mental health care, although transport could be supportive there, and also appropriate maintenance funding for state managed roads. As we all know, Alpine Shire does quite well, I do anyway, quite well with the roads that we manage, but the state-run roads need more maintenance than they get. So we fully support a number of other councils who have that in their advocacy list as well. And I look forward to working out what we do with it and who we talk to and when, which is coming. So at that little soapboxing trip, I'm going to take this one to the vote. All those in favour? And Councillor Graham, have you frozen? Oh dear.
Is he frozen on the other side?
Yeah.
Yes, I think I'm frozen.
He will unfreeze, we believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, he's going, no, I'm not going to.
He might have been.
There we go. We just took that one to the vote, Councillor Graham. Which way would you like to vote for the advocacy piece? Perfect. That is an aye. So we're unanimous.
Aye.
We now move on to a Director of Assets items, and the first one is 8.2.1, Alpine Shire Tracks and Trails Master Plan, also important for Adventure Hub.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 8.2.1, Alpine Shire Tracks and Trails Master Plan 2025 to 2034. The purpose of this report is to present the final Alpine Shire Tracks and Trails Master Plan for consideration by Council. The Shire attracts significant visitation for nature-based activities including walking, hiking, cycling, mountain biking and trail running. In 2023, the region recorded more than 1.7 million domestic visitor nights, with trail-based recreation identified as one of the key motivations for visitation. Recognising the importance of trails to the Shire's economy, health outcomes and community wellbeing, Council commissioned the development of the Alpine Shire Tracks and Trails Master Plan 2024. Key components of the project included and are listed in the report: mapping, assessment of existing conditions and classification, consultation with community, user groups and land managers, identification of gaps and priority linkages, development of concept designs for priority projects and preparation of a prioritised action plan. The plan provides a strategic framework to guide trail planning infrastructure investment and collaboration with partner agencies such as DECA, Parks Victoria and Tourism North East. The development of the plan identified a number of challenges across the existing trail network, and they're listed in detail, and I'll summarise: inconsistent trail quality, missing links and fragmented connections, safety concerns, poor wayfinding and information, and capacity pressures. It's worth noting the financial and resource implication. The plan provides a strategic framework to guide future investment in trail infrastructure, but does not commit Council to immediate expenditure. Implementation will require staged delivery, securing external funding opportunities, collaboration with partner agencies, future Council consideration of individual projects and expenditure, and consideration of long-term operational and maintenance costs. Any projects that arise as part of the master plan will be subject to separate business cases, consultation and Council approval prior to delivery. You'll note in the report that the risks are listed with their mitigation actions. It's also worth noting that the plan has been informed by extensive community and stakeholder engagement. through stage 1 of the plan. Engagement included over 200 community survey responses, interviews with stakeholders, 3 council workshops, site visits and technical assessments. And the themes that were identified in that are listed in the report. The second stage of the community consultation post the draft of the plan included a variety of feedback direct through council's engagement online. In conclusion, the plan provides a long-term strategic framework to guide trail planning, investment and partnership opportunities while protecting the environmental and cultural values that underpin the region's appeal. Therefore, this evening it is recommended that Council receives and notes the draft Alpine Shire Tracks and Trails Master Plan, adopts the Alpine Shire Tracks and Trails Master Plan, and notes that implementation of the plan will be subject to securing external funding and will be delivered through a staged approach with individual projects subject to future council consideration, business cases and assessment of ongoing operational and maintenance costs.
Thank you, councillors. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Anderson. No one else going to move it? Councillor Byrne, thank you. Councillor Graham, I know I forget you on the screen. It's moved and seconded. Councillor Anderson.
Seconded it.
Sorry, it's Councillor Anderson and Councillor Byrne.
I'd just like to say thank you to all the people who were involved in getting this plan together. I think it's an amazing piece of work that's really going to push us forward with what we're planning in the future. That's all. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson.
Councillor Byrne.
I think it's an important step forward to have projects that are becoming budget ready and shovel ready so that we can apply for the correct funding as it arises. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne.
How about you next,
Thank you.
Councillor Graham?
Just here, it's a draft, 300 pages, with impressed by... It's a great document, and I would like first to thank council officer and residents who participate to this elaboration. For me, this final document is still lacking in risk management. A strategic master plan should incorporate risk management, integrating risk management into strategic planning, transform it from reactive, compliance-driven activity into proactive, value-adding tool to ensure long-term resilience and achievement of objectives. So I don't know, but if tonight this track and master plan is not adopted, so I'm happy to bring an alternative motion to identify better the risk management and to be incorporated to this master plan.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. So you have foreshadowed a possible alternative motion. Yep, thank you. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hopefully I haven't frozen again. We've heard reports of incidents involving cyclists and pedestrians on some of the tracks, particularly those around Bright. Will there be an increased signage indicating usage etiquette and a right-of-way hierarchy on any new proposed tracks and retrofitted to existing tracks?
Thank you, Councillor Graham. We will ask Ms Buckley to answer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Graham. That's correct. So as part of the master plan, it was identified that existing trails could be improved through appropriate signage depending on the type of trail, of course. And any new trail that is proposed would need to identify those options for signage to improve safety and, as you mentioned, also etiquette. We do believe that the risk management is important, so I note Councillor Ronco and your comments. Thank you for those. We do also believe that it's an operational procedure to identify the risk management and emergency management and asset management procedures as they arise or for review.
Thank you. Any further questions from councillors? No. I was going to ask a more specific question about risk management, which I expect is operational, but is it correct that for each step of the process as we implement the plan, we'll get external funding and we'll be doing the risk management as that external funding is rolled out and spent?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's correct. As with any asset you touch or build, the standards of the day are applicable. Obviously, that doesn't cover any trails that you've built some time ago that may or may not meet the current standards, but it certainly has identified gaps in the network, but also gaps in terms of what we might today consider appropriate for safety signage. So hopefully that answers that question.
Thank you very much. We will, don't usually have a right to reply, but
I
it's a
think
special treat for you, Councillor
Risk
Rockcroft.
management, I think, is very important, and I think before final master plan, that should be in the final master plan. I know you say it's operational, will be done as a measure that we put in place this plan, but I think be part of this plan is very important. So that's why
You're foreshadowing.
think twice.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, councillors. We will take this one to the vote, the recommendation as it stands. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? There is one person against plan, but it is carried. Thank you. We move on now to 8.2.2, Nimmo Pedestrian Bridge.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 8.2.2, Nemo Pedestrian Bridge. This report relates to an unbudgeted contract variation for Nemo Pedestrian Bridge. After the 2019-20 bushfires, funding became available through Emergency Management Victoria for the Nemo Pedestrian Bridge. With an adopted budget in 23-24 of $750,000, a design and construct contract was awarded to North East Civil Construction for $548.50 at the March 2024 Ordinary Council meeting. Given the awarded value of a total budget of $550,000 was carried forward and adopted by Council in 25-26 financial year to complete the project. However, during the design phase of the project, several different locations for the bridge were investigated to ensure the design criteria could be met without having a detrimental effect on the nearby road bridge. After these investigations, a location downstream of the road bridge was determined to be the best location, and a detailed geotechnical report was produced to inform the foundation design at the time. The final engineering design was completed in March 2026. During the detailed design, the final loading criteria and poor geotechnical findings resulted in a heavier structure on significantly deeper piles and larger footings. Also, due to the length of time between the award of the contract and the finalisation of the design, there was an escalation of material costs. This all resulted in a cost increase of $214,466. You will see summarised in the report the financial implications detailed in a table. The total unbudgeted expenditure required for the 25-26 financial year and the following is $199,981. The project has been funded by Emergency Management Victoria to the value of $478,675. And that leaves Council responsible for the additional co-contribution, which is close to what we originally presumed, of $287,730. You will see in the report we've identified several risks with the mitigation actions. Initial consultation with the Myrtleford community identified the desire to have a safe pedestrian cycle link over the river. Since then, consultation with other authorities have continued during the investigation of the various potential bridge locations. In the report, it details those authorities that we have been working with and where we're up to in relation to that. It's worth noting that the Tangerang Land and Waters Council has inspected the site and acknowledged the land use activity agreements, and we are yet to receive final sign-off. In order for the bridge construction to proceed, additional budget of $199,981 is required to allow the approval of the 21466 contract variation. Therefore, this evening, it is recommended that Council approves a variation to contract 2400801, Nemo pedestrian bridge to North East Civil Construction for 214,466 exclusive GST, resulting in unbudgeted spend of 199,981, and delegates authority to the Chief Executive Officer to sign the contract variation at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Ms Buckley. Councillors?
Councillor Graham.
Well, all hands are going up. Councillor Byrne, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Byrne.
Hey.
Director Buckley, is it possible you could give us an indicative timeframe for completion? I know that's difficult with Tangerang's answer still outstanding. However,
Gone dead again.
the funding envelope approved till 31 November. So over to you. Do you think we can 30 November? Sorry. Can we make that?
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. It's a fair question because this project's been going on for quite some time due to a variety of different challenges. As you mentioned, we've got until the end of November for an extension on the grant agreement. My project managers are hopeful that we will have it finished by October. I'd like to say even earlier, but to be safe, let's say October, and then that gives us a month before the grant funding expires.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson?
It's a bit of a bridge over troubled water. I think the needs still, like the community really want this bridge. I know as a council, I really want to see this bridge go forward. So I think to sort of get to this point and go, oh, this is going to be, this under-budgeted amount's too much would be, it's just, we're that close, it feels like we're getting closer. So I think we should really support this motion, this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson, and I'd also take the opportunity to thank the community for their patience on this, because I understand to them it looks like it's delayed and there's been challenges, but yes, we have heard that they very much still want the bridge, and you know the final cost is almost identical to what we originally estimated.
Can I just ask a question on top of that? I guess, are the community aware of the different iterations of the bridge? It's been to the one side of the road and the other side. Are they aware of the latest sort of what we're trying to do now?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. That's a good question. It did come up in the council meeting in December, I think it was, where we explained in high-level summary what the issues were. However, we're intending to put some more communication out through our various social media and media releases in the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Thank you. Councillor Graham, you had your hand up earlier. Do you have a question, comment?
I certainly do, thank you, and I hope I don't get frozen again. I've been invested in this project for 9 years, long before I started thinking about standing for council in my previous profession prior to retiring. Unfortunately, at this stage, I see a risk of it turning into a white elephant for the following reasons. It's primarily children that'll be using this bridge, particularly over summer when they go to the beach at Nemo. It requires them crossing the road 3 times before they get there and 3 times on their return trip. That means they're going to be crossing the road 6 times. It's human nature to travel in a straight line from where you are to where you want to go. To use this bridge in its current planning design requires not only them to cross the road, but to deviate well out of this line of sight. The earlier plan that was proposed, cantilevering off the side of the road bridge on the upstream side, was, and I still believe, the best option. The plan was refused by Vic Roads, who own the bridge, for their reasoning alone, I guess. And it would like have been a cost of, and I'm estimating $150,000 to $200,000 to build a cantilevered walkway. Instead, we are now faced with what I consider a suboptimal location and a cost of $750,000, give or take. Given the need for additional work of footpaths and road crossings, we are probably heading towards $1 million by the time it's finished. Now, spending $1 million and saving one life is justified. We're currently on I believe it's our third extension of time until the end of November. But this may be our last extension if we can't get it done on time. To me, this is bureaucracy gone mad. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Further, yep, Councillor Smith.
I know how long's a bit of string, but between now and you foresee, between now and October, hopefully, can you see any more variations from the contractor? Can you, I know we've got another, if that's another 4 months, 5 months, are we in jeopardy of another variation on the costings or not?
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Now that we have the fixed price based on the final design, it's unlikely that we'll see any variation. It's only if we find further latent conditions on site that weren't included in the scope. So with the final geotech, the piles and the footings, they have costed that and given us a final price. So we're not expecting any variations unless there's some strange latent condition on site that we weren't prepared for, which I doubt. This should be the final costing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco.
Just a little one. So I saw the contract for design and construct was awarded in March 2024, and before the final design in March 2026. So it's 2 years. So is it common or no? It's very particular to this project.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. So it was a design and construct tender, which is very common. What isn't common is that we thought we were getting approval to build the bridge in its existing location, and some authorities, namely Vic Roads, decided to say, no, it can't go in that location. We had some other challenges with other authorities. They're right because it is their bridge and their road reserve. So that isn't common. And I guess the process to try and find the exact location is unusual, and I guess our learnings from this would be that we take more time in the pre-planning to land on the final location first, even though we thought that was going to go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've got a question. Ms Buckley, are measures being considered to improve safety for the bridge where it is, for things like sightlines, shared path access and crossing points? And if so, are there any to share at this stage?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There aren't specifics to share at this stage, but my project managers are considering exactly what you just listed, which is potential for footpath upgrade or new footpath. Line of sight, as you suggested, the project managers looking at potentially plantings of vegetation to guide pedestrians to the bridge. And in addition to that, considering if crossing points are appropriate on that road, again, a Vic Roads road, so it would take approvals through those authorities as well.
Thank you. Councillor Baird, would you like a reply or nothing further to say? No. Okay, so we're ready to take this one to the vote then. All those in favour? There we go, it's unanimous. And we move on to 8.2.3, Capital Works Performance. Thanks, Ms Buckley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 8.2.3, Capital Works Performance Report, April 2026. The purpose of this report is to provide an update on the status of the 25-26 Capital Works program. Effective tracking and oversight of capital works is critical to ensuring strong governance, financial accountability and successful delivery of Council's infrastructure objectives. As part of the effective tracking and oversight, the status of the Capital Works program is summarised in a Council report in October and April each financial year to ensure any risks are identified early and solutions for mitigation discussed and implemented transparently. This year's program comprises predominantly of smaller scope projects in comparison to last financial year. Despite their size, these projects require a similar and, in some cases, greater level of resourcing to deliver successfully. The slower start to the 25-26 program was primarily driven by delays in recruitment and staff absences. However, the team has worked proactively to address these constraints and ensure the program remains on track for delivery in the final quarter of the financial year. As of mid-April 2026, over 84% of Council's capital works budget has been committed through purchase orders to contractors. Commitments are running ahead of forecast. However, a total of 54% of the capital works project budget has been expended, which is actually lower than the forecast of 81% that was profiled at the beginning of the 25-26 financial year. These figures are tracked monthly by both manager and executive level through monthly briefings and are reflective of an S-curve expenditure as we see annually and is expected across the capital works delivery. However, the sustained variance between actual and forecast expenditure is a material risk to delivery against budget and schedule. As such, this position requires heightened scrutiny and active management. The most recent monthly analysis highlights the lower than forecast expenditure as well as the status of the project delivery, and you'll see in the report a table that highlights those that are on schedule, the greens behind schedule, orange and at risk of not being delivered are in the reds. The report also provides an analysis and includes a summary of all projects within each delivery status and highlights which can be seen in Table 2. A total budget of $8.83 million was adopted for the Capital Works Projects 25-26 financial year, made up of renewals, upgrades and new, which are also detailed in the report. Throughout the financial year, adjustments are made to the adopted budget. These movements typically reflect projects delivered under or over budget, as well as new projects that arise during the year and are funded through council resources or external grants. Despite these changes, all projects remain fully accommodated within the total allocation of $8.83 million. The total funding contributed through grants now amounts to $3.1 million. Detailed in the report is the changes. In the October Capital Works update, we added 3 projects valued at over $470,000 and a further 3 projects now totalling $234,000 are now also scheduled for delivery. This report provides an update to the status of the 25-26 Capital Works program. And therefore, this evening it is recommended that Council notes the content of this report, which provides an update on the status of the 25-26 Capital Works program.
Thank you, Ms Buckley. I thought Councillor Graham was moving it, but he's scratching his head. Councillor Byrne. And Councillor Anderson. Councillor Byrne.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Buckley. With the 4 high-risk projects that are listed in the red, is grant funding guaranteed to ensure the funding continues and remains available for the completion of the project?
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Yes, it is guaranteed.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Anderson.
I guess, is there any risk to any of these, delivery of any of these projects with the current sort of fuel crisis? I know that some of these have locked in prices and things, but can contractors come back and ask for variation because of fuel costs rapidly rising?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Typically, no, as it's when we have our tenders for our capital works projects, I can't think of one that I've ever seen where it's a fuel price rise is built into the contract. Different for our service contracts, but for capital works, they have to build in a percentage of risk. So those that we've already engaged for contract, I would say aren't at risk. Can't guarantee it, of course. However, next financial year, we would be expecting to see an increase on a standard, for example, road renewal project that would cost a certain amount this year. We would expect an increase in that because of a result of increased largely diesel prices, sometimes unleaded, of course, as well.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments?
Just, I have the same questions that Councillor Anderson. So, thanks.
Okay, no further questions, comments, discussion. We'll take this one to the vote. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. And we move on to 8.2.4. Councillor Anderson is leaving the room at 6:08. Ms Buckley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 8.2.4, Alpine Shire Council Animal Pound. This report relates to the construction of a new animal pound facility. The existing council animal pound facility is nearing the end of its useful life. Over the years, and as animal welfare best practices and guidelines have evolved, council officers have incrementally improved the existing facility to keep pace with these changes. However, as the facility has aged, it has become increasingly challenging to maintain it in a condition which meets the appropriate code of practice and provides a safe workplace for council staff. Additionally, since the subdivision and development of the adjacent land as residential housing, council's animal pound facility has impacted on the amenity of neighbouring residents. The following options have been assessed: ceasing to operate an animal pound in the Alpine Shire and delivering council's legislative obligations through the engagement of third-party providers, upgrading the existing pound facility to achieve compliance with the current code of practice, and building a new compliant animal pound facility. As a result of this assessment, it is recommended that a new pound facility be delivered in a new location with increased physical separation from the nearest residential properties. The proposed design makes use of a durable modular unit which meet stringent safety standards and regulatory requirements, with inbuilt HVAC safety mesh doors to control access, ensuring a safe and secure space for council staff when dealing with dogs, and a more modest shed with an internal fit-out to accommodate a cattery, food preparation and a storage area. Increasing challenges experienced by the team over recent months in rehoming noisy dogs and in handling dangerous dogs, together with extreme heat condition experienced over the summer months, have heightened the urgency of the delivery of the long-term solution instead of addressing issues through discrete upgrades of the existing facility. Hence the request for council to commit to commencing this as an unbudgeted project in the 25-26 year, allowing completion at earliest opportunity. The financial implications are that the estimated overall capital project is $272,000, and expenditure will be split across this financial year and next financial year. There is a breakdown of the estimated project costs provided in the table. The existing animal pound facility is expected to be decommissioned in 27-28 financial year, given its limited future utility and lack of justification for ongoing maintenance or renewal costs. It's also noted in the report that the useful life of the new pound is expected to be 40 years, with an estimated annual cost of $8,400. We have listed the risks and the various mitigation and action controls within the report. It's worth noting that consultation was undertaken with Council's local laws team, other rural councils regarding the operating models, and confirmed that Council-owned and operated animal pound facilities meet the best appropriate standards and are the most viable and cost-effective option. Therefore, this evening it is recommended that Council commits to unbudgeted expenditure of $272,000 excluding GST to deliver a new animal pound facility, of which $50,000 will be expended in the 25-26 financial year, and the balance of $222,000 will be included in the draft 26-27 budget, and notes that individual contracts associated with the delivery of this project are anticipated to be awarded under the financial delegation of the CEO.
Thank you, Ms Buckley. Moved Councillor Byrne, seconded Councillor Ronco. Councillor Byrne, sorry, Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Director Buckley. Given that the noise of barking dogs is one of the drivers behind moving this, have we determined that the noise of barking dogs will be contained on the new site when it is built?
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. A very valid question. The new pound, as I mentioned, is largely made out of modular units which are purpose-built, and they're insulated, ventilated and soundproof to standard. In addition, as I mentioned, we're moving it to make sure it's away from a residential location.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco.
It's good to read that this new pond facility is expected to have a useful life of approximately 40 years, so it's really good. And it's another important asset to be delivered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco.
Thank you. Any further questions from Councillor Smith, Councillor Graham? No?
Yeah, certainly.
We'll take this
We
one
had a
vote
site.
then. All those in favour?
Okay.
That is unanimous. Thank you. And Councillor Anderson come back in. Thanks. Nothing's going on. Nothing's going on. He went. No, he went into the committee room. And Councillor Anderson returned at 6:14, and we move on to 8.2.5.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 8.2.5, glass-only recycling service community consultation. This report relates to the Victorian Government requirement for Alpine Shire Council to introduce a separate glass recycling service to residential land by 1 July 2027 through the Circular Economy Waste Reduction and Recycling Act 2021. The Victorian Government's Circular Economy Policy 2020 introduced a mandatory 4-stream waste and recycling system for all Victorian households. The Circular Economy Act 2021, under this policy, requires Council to provide a municipal glass recycling service as one of these 4 streams to residential land. The requirement for this service are guided by the Household Waste and Recycling Draft Service Standard 2024 that prescribe an implementation deadline of 1 July 2027. The policy aims to increase capture rates and quality of glass recyclables by introducing contamination and breakage through separating glass at the source, reported in the Draft Service Standard and associated regulatory impact statement, to have a net financial benefit as well as an environmental benefit. At the ordinary council meeting held on the 24th of June 2025, council adopted an official advocacy position to the Victorian Government to delay the implementation date for the glass-only service, as well as officially establishing council as a member of a statewide glass advocacy group. Due to the lack of response from the Victorian Government to this advocacy position, council should commence planning for the implementation of glass-only service in Alpine Shire that complies with the Draft Household Waste and Recycling Standard 2024 to minimise the risk of potential penalties associated with non-compliance. Details of the draft service standards. The draft service standards State Council and Alpine Resorts Victoria must provide each of the 4 streams of waste as curbside collection service unless this is not reasonably practicable. And we've highlighted those direct sections out of there in the report. From July 1, 2027, in accordance with these draft service standards, glass of any kind will no longer be accepted in the commingled recycling bin. General waste bins will accept glass items not accepted in the glass recycling service. I mentioned earlier Council's previous position from the 24th of June Ordinary Council meeting. This position was to delay the required implementation of the glass-only recycling service and the removal of glass from commingled recycling until the Victorian Government clearly demonstrates how the benefits of a new glass-only service will outweigh the increased costs to be imposed on ratepayers. The Glass Advocacy Group has since further developed its advocacy position, and it's summarised in the report. A delay in the implementation date for the mandatory glass service to allow for further evaluation, the expansion of Victoria's container deposit scheme to include wine and spirit bottles as a more practical alternative to implementing a glass-only household service, and we ask for the finalisation of the draft service standard. Council's advocacy position will be communicated through a statewide 5-week public campaign, and that has already commenced in April 2026 with relevant surveys that have also been sent out to the community of those affected councils. In 2024, Council determined that the economic and environmental costs of a separate glass-only service outweigh anticipated benefits. We reference in the report a Tonkin and Taylor report that found that implementation and ongoing costs were significantly underestimated in the RIS when compared with data from 22 Victorian councils. Although the Victorian Government has committed $129 million to recycling reform, research by the Glass Advocacy Group indicates this funding would cover less than 10% of glass service implementation costs per council, with most costs falling to ratepayers. Cost modelling showed that a separate glass service combined with CDS is the highest cost option for councils, while retaining commingled within an optimised CDS is the lowest cost option. Environmental impacts include 2.7 million additional bins across Victoria and 158 additional trucks, generating an estimated 354 tonnes of CO2 emissions per 4-weekly collection cycle. The response from Recycle Victoria has been in draft form since 2024. There has been no formal response from the Victorian Government to either councils or to the Glass Advocacy Group's advocacy position to date. Recycle Victoria has most recently asserted that a lack of compliance with obligations set out under the Act and the service standard will be subject to criminal prosecution and met with the full force of the law. We discuss in the report itself options for glass-only service, detailed in the report. The issues are summarised and outlined as our interstate MRF does not offer a glass-out service. The Alpine Shire will pay for glass to be separated unnecessarily. The cost of implementing either a curbside or drop-off service to Alpine Shire residents is very high for very low financial, circular economy or environmental benefits. The glass-only service is only mandated for residential properties and does not include commercial properties. If Alpine Shire Waste Services complied with the service standards, commingled collection trucks would still collect glass. Several rural councils with a curbside service have reported low presentation rates. Expanding the CDS as an alternative to providing a glass service is predicted to result in greater glass recycling rates at a net financial benefit to ratepayers. Council must begin the process of implementing some form of glass-only service being mandated by the 1st of July 2027 to avoid potential prosecution. This includes determining through community consultation what model of service is reasonably practicable for Alpine Shire's population. Listed in the report is the policy implications. Also detailed in the report is the financial and resource implications and the different costs to council across the different types of service. The work done by the Glass Advocacy Group has established that the overall aims of the Victorian Government's circular economy policy and the Act are not likely to be met by the mandated requirements of the draft service standard. The requirements financially disadvantage ratepayers and are not anticipated to yield environmental benefits. Continued advocacy by Council and the Glass Advocacy Group is required. Therefore, this evening, it is recommended that Council reaffirms its advocacy position resolved at the Ordinary Council meeting held on the 24th of June 2025, updated to align with collective advocacy position of the group of 34 councils, and endorses a community engagement process to determine a reasonably practicable glass-only service for Alpine Shire, and the types of methods for that engagement are listed in the report. And lastly, notes that council officers will consider community feedback and report back to council at a future council meeting.
Thank you, Ms Buckley. But you're glad that was your last one.
That was a long one.
Councillor Graham.
Councillors, do you have a move?
Councillor Graham.
Moved. Councillor Ronco. Seconded.
Graham.
Councillor Graham. Councillor Ronco.
Nothing to add.
Councillor Graham.
Yes, I've had contact from 3 ratepayers and all have stated our current commingled system works well. But if we have to change, they would like to see an expanded CDS, because currently there are only 2 businesses within the Alpine Shire that actually take the CDS containers, and they're both having to hand count whatever you take into them. Alternatively, drop-off points at the tips, at supermarkets and at bottle shops. The government needs to release this final service standard so we can actually get a real-time look at what they want. My question is, given that there is a state election in November, have we heard from the alternative government's policy?
I think the answer is no at this point in time. Be a question on notice.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Graham. I don't have anything specifically. It's just a little bit of hearsay at the moment, but I'll take the question on notice to bring back to the next council meeting to see if there's any formal statements.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions from other councillors? No? Yep.
What's the method of community feedback? How are you going to go about that?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. That's going to be through a survey, which will be online. We've had, just so that the community is aware and there's no confusion, there is a glass survey out at the moment. That's through the Glass Advocacy Group, which is across all of those councils that are involved. Our council will be sending out a separate survey, likely towards the end of this week, to understand and ask further questions and more detailed questions to see what the sentiment of the community is.
You say sending out, or is it something they got to find
Sorry,
online?
Engage page, yes.
On the Engage
Apologies.
page?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else know? I had a question about the service standard finalisation, and I know you've got no idea because it's been going on for a long time, but is the service standard the place where we will find out whether the fourth bin is mandatory for every household or whether people can choose.
It should be. What we are anticipating that they've suggested is that they may make the bin mandatory and then allow for opt-out. So they are yet to put forward a position on that, as well as everything else within the standard.
Yeah, thank you. And I have another question about CDS in other states. Do you have any idea how many other states do actually take wine bottles and the larger drink containers in their CDS?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do not, but I can certainly find out and bring it back with the answer to the other question on the formal statement of the opposition.
Yeah, sorry about that being
That's
a
okay.
question on notice, but I think you might give us some
Yeah.
ideas about how to argue.
Yep,
Yeah.
good question.
Thank you. Nothing else? We'll take this one to the vote then. All those in favour of the recommendation? Yep, that is unanimous. Thank you. And we move on to our Director of Corporate and Community, Ms Cook. Item 8.3.1.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 8.3.1 is our Disability Access and Inclusion Plan 2026 to 2029. The purpose of this report is to present the Disability Access and Inclusion Plan for 2026 to 2029 for adoption by Council. The draft plan was endorsed by Council for public exhibition in February 2026 and was available online, in print at Council's libraries, visitor information centres and Council offices. Further consultation was also undertaken with internal and external stakeholders. Feedback was received through multiple channels. Overall, feedback on the plan was positive. 4 submissions were raised, which raised matters directly relevant to the draft plan, and these have been reviewed with updates incorporated where appropriate to reflect the feedback received. A summary of that feedback and how it's been incorporated into the plan is contained within your report. It is recommended that Council adopts the Disability Access and Inclusion Plan to meet Council's legislative and social obligations, and notes the Disability Access and Inclusion Plan has an action plan associated with it which will support delivery of the initiatives. Officers will also provide biannual, so twice a year, reports to Council on actions and progress against the action plan itself in both October and April each year for the life of the plan. It is therefore recommended that Council notes the submissions received as part of the exhibition of the draft Access and Inclusion Plan and was considered in the review of the final plan, adopts the Disability Access and Inclusion Plan. So the title of the plan changed through the exhibition period from Access and Inclusion to Disability Access and Inclusion, and notes the Disability Access and Inclusion Plan Action Plan, which supports the implementation of the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Cook. Councillors. Moved by Councillor Anderson and seconded by Councillor Ronco. Councillor Anderson.
Have we had action plans for the Access and Inclusion Plan before?
So that's a very good question. Thank you, Councillor Anderson. No, we have not had a separate action plan for our Disability Access and Inclusion Plan. The action plan format is really something that we've put into place since we've developed our new council plan. So you might know our council plan has a detailed 4-year action plan that sits behind that. And we found that that action plan, where we made it very specific and detailed across each year, enabled us to be very focused on what we were delivering. It also enabled us to be really clear with the community on what was contingent upon future year funding. So the first action plan we put into place supports our current council plan.
Yes.
And in our financial sustainability sustainability strategy that we put forward last October, we have an action plan with that. We've now used the same format for an action plan for the Disability Access and Inclusion Plan.
Okay. Now, do officers find that more helpful rather than just having a broad plan that sort of speaks in broad strokes about what we're going to do, but it's like definite sort of steps of how they're going to do it? Is that sort of more helpful for them, do you think?
Very much so. I think having a really defined set of actions that's got a really defined responsibility owner.
Yeah.
So we can say, this is the team that's delivering it, this is the person who's responsible for delivery, this is the year it's going to be delivered, we're going to have to request budget funding for that. Makes it really clear when we're planning out our work plans every year and when we're planning out our draft budget to come for approval, what we want to deliver, when we want to deliver, when we're going to report it, and how transparent we can be on how well we're achieving. I think the action plans are really great.
I guess some more
addition.
accountability for the community as well. I have one more question, sorry. Why, you said there was the title change from Access Inclusion Plan to Disability Access Inclusion Plan. Why, was that an outcome from input from the community? How did that come about?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. We received very strong feedback from one of our stakeholders
Yes.
In this space that the inclusion of the word disability made the plan clearer
Yes.
and more targeted as to the deliverables we're wanting under that plan.
Have they been made aware of their input? Have they been made aware that that change has come about because of them?
So my understanding is that all submitters will be made aware after
once we
tonight's
vote on it.
approval.
Okay. Yeah,
Should
brilliant.
the document be approved, will be made aware of the outcome of their submissions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ronco?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Anybody else got anything they'd like to add or question? Comments? No. I'd just like to add that I think that the feedback that we got was really constructive, and I wanted to congratulate our staff for pulling together a plan that's got those wonderful steps of action, and we can be able to see against the deliverables how we're going. So well done everybody who contributed. And at that, we'll take it to the vote. All those in favour of the recommendation? That is unanimous. Thank you. We move on to 8.3.2, the draft surveillance technology. I'll let you introduce it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 8.3.2 relates to our draft surveillance technology policy, which we're proposing to put on community engagement. The purpose of the report is to present the draft surveillance technology policy to be placed on public exhibition to obtain community feedback for review and consideration for final policy development. The draft policy combines existing council policies, being council's CCTV surveillance cameras policy and our body-worn camera policy into one document. The draft policy considers council's use of the following types of surveillance devices: body-worn cameras and personal duress alarms, CCTV or closed-circuit television cameras, tourism cameras and promotional videos or photos that are taken, location tracking devices and software, that mostly relates to council's use of vehicles. Asset inspection cameras, including drones and vehicle-mounted cameras, and other recording devices such as when we undertake traffic survey cameras. The surveillance technology policy details how council will comply with requirements of relevant legislation, which includes the Surveillance Devices Act and the Privacy and Data Protection Act. The Victorian Auditor General's Office, or VARGO, reviewed surveillance technology in public places at 5 Victorian councils in 2018. Their report found that there are 2 key requirements that councils need to meet for all surveillance activities. These include management and oversight of surveillance activities and privacy and data security. This draft policy addresses those 2 requirements. So there's a summary in your document of key policy changes that have been implemented through the drafting of this policy from the 2 existing policies that we have. We have decided to prepare an overarching policy which clearly delineates when an activity constitutes surveillance, whether intentionally or not, and to ensure that all surveillance activities are managed appropriately and comply with the relevant legislation around privacy and data protection. The key changes are as follows: inclusion of all council activities that may constitute surveillance, for example, such as the tourism cameras, promotional videos and photos, asset inspection cameras and other types of image or audio recording devices. Creation of a surveillance oversight committee, which will be made up of senior council officers to oversee all surveillance activities undertaken by council. Implementation of a procedure for assessing and approving requests for surveillance technology using the Office of the Victorian Information Commissioner's Principles for Public Place Surveillance. implementation of a centralised register for all devices and approved activities undertaken by council, and provision of clear pathways for public complaints or inquiries about our surveillance activities. To note, however, the current restrictions in the current policies, which require all requests for CCTV cameras in public places to come to a council meeting for approval, remain under this policy. Therefore, the recommendation is that council endorses the draft policy to be placed on public exhibition for a period of 4 weeks, invites public submissions on the draft policy, and will note those public submissions when they consider the final policy at a future council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Moved Councillor Byrne, seconded Councillor Anderson. Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Director Cook. Can you outline how long the digital records will be retained on our system?
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Digital records are retained on the system on which they're maintained, depending on what they are. So some records are managed under licence. For example, our body-worn camera records are managed under licence from a provider. Those records are disposed of within 30 days. Unless there's an active investigation underway that requires us to maintain those records. Existing CCTV records are disposed of within 28 days.
Finally, to just follow that up, how do we confirm that those standards are being met and the records are being deleted on a regular basis?
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. It's quite similar to undertaking retention disposal of other types of documents and records. So where we're under contract or licence to a provider, it's part of the contract that they're disposed of within those timeframes. Where it's in-house maintained, we have a regular disposal schedule.
Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I was just wondering, this is an inward sort of facing policy. We legislated that we have to go out to public, we have to consult the public, the community. Is that right?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. We aren't legislated to undertake public consultation on this policy. Yeah. So some policies under the Local Government Act, we have to undertake certain types of consultation, for example, deliberative engagement or other types of consultation. However, we determine the appropriateness of community engagement based on our community engagement policy, and we make an assessment against that policy as to the impact on the community, the amount of community interest and how much input the community may wish to have. As this policy may generate some community interest, and also people may have some interest in data protection within the generation of that data, it felt appropriate to put this one out for community engagement.
Yeah, it'll be just open sort of for whatever comments people want to make. There won't be sort of targeted questions around the policy as such. Is this the first time we've gone out to a public engagement over this policy?
Thank you. This is a new policy because it incorporates the two policies we've had previously, but we've had a CCTV surveillance policy and a body-worn camera policy for some years now. The provisions of this aren't hugely dissimilar. Okay. They simply align us with our legislative requirements, really, and we've captured a few things that potentially in the past we may not have considered surveillance. For example, the taking of tourism and promotional videos wasn't contained within a previous policy, but we'd rather bring it in and be really transparent about what could potentially be perceived as surveillance.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from councillors? Councillor Graham? No. I have a question about a couple of sort of a few things. So we're calling it a surveillance technology policy, and I know you've already outlined, Ms Cook, what we're covering, but so I've got two questions. Could we just briefly outline that again, because it sort of sounds a bit more like ASIO than a local government when you call it surveillance, but also is it a definitive list? Would we have to review the policy to add anything else that we thought of down the track?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the list is not definitive. However, the addition of any items to the policy is subject to senior review or council approval. The policy, when we're talking about surveillance, we are really limiting what we are discussing to the following points. Body-worn cameras, so they're the cameras that, for example, our local laws officers wear on their uniform, which is mostly for personal protection. and personal duress alarms. So these are alarms that some of our staff use, particularly if they operate as lone workers in remote locations in case there is an incident and they require assistance. Closed circuit television cameras, so where we do have CCTV via approval across the Shire. Tourism cameras and promotional videos and photographs. Location tracking devices and software within council operated vehicles. Asset inspection cameras, including drones and vehicle mounted cameras. So the reason they've been included is, should an asset inspection camera be taking a photograph of an asset, then it generally is not surveillance. However, should there be unintentional capture of property or an individual in those public photographs of those assets, then potentially they could be considered surveillance, but generally they are not, they're asset photographs. And other recording devices such as traffic survey cameras. So should we wish to set up a survey camera in order to count traffic movements, we're incorporating that because we're collecting data.
Thank you very much. Take this one to the vote. All those in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. And we move on to the information privacy policy. Ms Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 8.3.3 is the information privacy policy. The purpose of this report is to present the fourth version, so V4, of the information privacy policy to be considered for adoption by council. The reviewed policy updates the previous policy, which was V3, with consideration of the Gender Equity Act and other minor changes. The policy implements the requirements of the Privacy and Data Protection Act and the Health Records Act. And we've undertaken a gender impact assessment also, and the findings from that were used to inform a review of the policy. Those assessment findings are summarised in the report. Otherwise, it is recommended that council notes that the policy has been reviewed with some minor amendments to ensure legislative compliance, and adopts the information privacy policy, revokes the previous information privacy policy being V3, and signs and seals the document at the appropriate stage of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Cook. Mover and a seconder, please, councillors. Councillor Byrne, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Byrne. Councillor Anderson.
Policy. It said there's some minor changes, and one of the points was there's alignment with the council plan, our council plan of 25-29. What were those changes from that?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Sorry, it took me a moment to think that question through. In the beginning of the policy document, there is an inserted provision which shows where the policy provisions align with the objectives of the council plan. That is all that means.
Anything further from councillors? No? We'll take this one to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. And we move on to 8.3.4. Ms Cook. Yep.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 8.3.4, instruments of delegation. I don't disagree, Councillor Byrne. This is business as usual.
Have you moved the recommendation, Councillor Byrne? Okay, that'll be a so moved. Thank you.
Right.
Councillor Byrne has moved the instruments of delegation. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ronco. Any other councillors have any comment or question? Eh? We will vote. We just don't need to listen to the whole thing if we don't want to. Sorry, I'm just catching up because usually I write this all down for further discussion. I guess I'd just like to say that the instruments of delegation, yes, they're business as usual, but they're absolutely critical for our functioning as an organisation. So they have to come to council. But yes, we can recognise that and take it to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. And we move on to 8.3.5.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 8.3.5 is the community engagement informing the draft 2026-27 budget report. And the purpose of this report is to respond to the community feedback that was received by Council during the preparation of the draft budget. Council has prepared the annual draft budget, which is being recommended to be placed on public exhibition at this meeting. It is the next report. In preparing for the draft budget, Council undertook an online community survey on its Engage platform to better understand community priorities. Through this process, 97 responses were received. This engagement was a change in approach to the previous year's budget submission, where Council would seek submissions from the communities for new projects and services which could be considered for inclusion in the budget. This change in approach was made following significant community engagement, which had been recently undertaken to develop the Community Vision 2030, the Council Plan 2025 to 2029, and the Municipal Public Health and Wellbeing Plan and the Council Plan Action Plan, which will guide budget priorities for 4 years. This report summarises the feedback that was received during the community engagement campaign. The full open text and quantitative engagement reports are provided in the attachment to the meeting agenda. And on approval of this report, it is proposed that those full attachments and information is provided back to the community members who submitted through the Community Alpine Engage platform. It is recommended that Council considers the written feedback that was received during the preparation of the draft budget, and we provide a summary on Alpine Engage to inform community members of the impact of their feedback has had on the development of the draft budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Cook. Mover and a seconder. Mover, Councillor Anderson, seconds, Councillor Smith. Councillor Anderson.
It says 97 responses. Is that 97 individuals or...? That's a surprising, it's a great number of responses. Why so successful? Why are we more successful this year than other years where we've gone out to engagement?
So thank you, Councillor Anderson. It is actually the most successful budget campaign we've had since we've changed our approach to pre-engagement. So we haven't always in the past undertaken pre-engagement on the draft budget. At a number of points in our past, we would have developed a draft budget, and the first time the community would have seen that was when it was placed on public exhibition like it is tonight, when we invite formal submissions on the budget. However, in recent years, we changed our approach to engaging with the community as part of a deliberative program and undertaking feedback prior to drafting the budget. So that's been quite new over the last few years. This pre-engagement has been very successful, and we think the reason for that is, one, we were able to develop a survey that was very simple, that asked people very simple questions about their priorities and what they felt was important for us to consider in developing the budget. And when you have a look at that data, it's very rich data. So 97 responses to a draft budget campaign is very, very good for us. It's a very good level of engagement, and the data's really rich. You'll see as you go through it, the data's really rich about what people find is important, and people didn't need to have a specific project to pitch to council in order to provide their feedback. So it was more inclusive than other programs we may have undertaken in the past. The other thing that's really great about the data we've received is we think it's probably the first time we've got a full spread of data across multiple demographics in the Shire. Because with the way the engagement was undertaken in the questions people answered to enable us to identify their demographic spread, it's actually one of the most successful campaigns we've had in terms of engaging a wide demographic across the Shire too. So we're actually really excited about the data that we've maintained through this project. And how rich it is for us. And it's a really good model for us on how to engage people quickly and provide them with when I say quick, I mean it was quick for people to fill in, provide them with a really accessible, easy way of providing us with information that's important to them.
I think that's great, because I know the big thing for us as councillors is to engage in the community. Are we going to rest on our laurels, or are we going to try and aim next year for 98? Are we going to build on that? Are we going to look at more opportunities within that way that we've been engaging with people in this level of that? Are we going to look at improving on that already more?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. I think we definitely will try to build on this for in the future. I think it's been a really good learning for us about ways that people would like to engage with us when we respond. So for people who have engaged with us through Engage Alpine, there is a checkbox that says, do you want to be kept informed about how things work or what's happened on this project going forward? For those people who have responded yes, they will get a notification out of this feedback to say this is how your feedback has been considered and how it's influenced the budget. But what we're also going to do is we're going to ask for feedback on the process themselves. So we're going to try to actively get some more information about the process so that we can continue to build on it in the future.
Brilliant, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, my question was answered just in that anyway, but I was really happy with how we can break up the demographic of it, the 97, how that was broken in different areas. And it's great that we've now reached out and we've found a way to get responses, because there's nothing worse than reaching out and you don't get that feedback. So well done on the team for the way that was done. So good.
Yes, Councillor Smith. Any questions or comments from other councillors? Councillor Graham.
Thank you. It was satisfying to see an improvement in the community engagement. Councils work best when the community interfaces with the council's decisions. The more we can do to motivate the community to be involved, the better off we will all be, and hopefully they'll remember us when it comes time to fill in into a customer satisfaction survey.
Nice try, well done. Councillor Ronco.
Yeah, so for this year, as you mentioned, so it was a new process for the community engagement for the draft budget. But I still regret to not have had the possibility to hear from our community like last year we had. So I remember last year some community group coming and to presenting their project and this kind of thing was very interesting. So, and for this year, some of the submissions were very detailed and interesting, and I wish I had the chance to understand better their points raised by our community. So what I saw now, so if the draft budget is adopted tonight, so and our communication go to the consultation, so it's to have a bit more what we miss, if we miss anything. So yeah.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. So the formal submission process starts after the draft budget is adopted by Council for Community Engagement. So that's the report that comes up next. So next what we will request is the draft budget to go on community engagement, and that opens another round of submission process for people who wish to provide specific feedback on the draft document themselves. So I think the way to consider pre-draft engagement is we're asking for ideas about what to go into the budget, or in any of our engagement when we go out for pre-drafting engagement, it's about what's important to you that we should consider while we're drafting. And then once we put a document out for community engagement or community submission, we're saying this is the draft that we've developed with the information that we have. Do you have specific feedback on the draft that we have now? And that feedback is then considered in the finalisation of the draft, and that's the process we'll go through with the budget now as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments about the community engagement? I'd just like to congratulate everybody as well for having a new idea and getting as many responses as we did. I think that's an indication that we have maybe an increasingly engaging community, which is great, that's what we need. And I'd urge everybody who's put in to date to continue to work constructively with Council, recognising that we need to deliver the core services in balance with other community and business needs. So this, as we've said, it's not the end of the process. It's the next step if we put the budget through tonight for community engagement. So, statement, not a question. And at that, we will take this to the vote. All those in favour of the recommendation? That is unanimous, and we move on to the draft budget for community engagement. Ms Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I present at item 8.3.6 the draft 2026 to 2027 budget for community engagement. The purpose of this report is to present the draft budget for endorsement to be placed on public exhibition prior to considering a recommendation to adopt the final budget at the June 2026 Ordinary Council meeting. Council has prepared the draft budget, which is aligned with the Alpine Shire Council plan for 2025 to 2029. You might remember in 2025, the Essential Services Commission identified through its annual rate cap reconciliation that Council was non-compliant to the rate cap for 2025 to 2026. This was due to a system error related to the cessation of the dinner plane special rate and equated to Council raising $168,713 in excess of the rate cap amount. At its December ordinary council meeting, council resolved to rectify this error by declaring rates and charges for 2026-27 financial year at an amount that was no more than that $168,713 below the amount of rates and charges which would have been raised if council was to apply the rate cap as permitted and set by the Minister for Local Government. The draft budget does implement that recommendation of council with an 1.84% increase on rate in the dollar per capital improved value being recommended in the report. The draft budget also projects an operating surplus. I note it's an operating surplus of $4.4 million. However, an underlying deficit, as we have been discussing through our financial sustainability discussions at our financial sustainability strategy, of $209,000. This budget is influenced by the income that we will be raising through the increase in rates of 1.84%. and an operating expenditure of $37.4 million and a capital works expenditure of $10.1 million. You may also remember at the October 2025 Ordinary Council meeting, Council directed the CEO to identify recurring annual operating cost savings of $1.5 million for the 2026 to 2027 financial year, as compared to the Financial Plan 2025 to 2035, and to reflect these cost savings in the draft budget. This budget represents a decrease in those material and services expenditure from $16.2 million for 2026 to 2027 to $14.85 million, as reflected through the financial plan, with a total recurrent operational saving of $1.35 million. This reflects the continued focus internally on streamlining our operations and improving our efficiency. It is recommended that Council notes the draft Alpine Shire budget featuring a 1.84% increase on the capital improved value on rates in the dollar, invites public submission on the document in accordance with our community engagement policy, and considers a recommendation to adopt the final budget at the June 2026 Ordinary Council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Cook. Councillors. Mover and seconder. Moved Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Smith. Councillor Anderson.
Nothing to add.
No. Councillor Graham, anything to ask about? Questions?
No, but I could just make a statement that the council has followed through on to reduce the rate increase by the amount mistakenly added to last year's rates, and I hope the ratepayers accept our apologies and recognises the fact we've done the right thing by them.
Thank you. I've got a number of questions. First of all, I wanted to recognise that $1.5 million in cost savings was a bit of a stretch target, and 1.35 is magnificent, and well done everybody. Absolutely, I'm really impressed. But I wanted to just check that we aren't affecting services. Just before you answer that question, it's part of the statement and part of the question is that councillors have asked our people to reduce the current budget so that we don't, and ask we don't lose services, and so that we don't have to ask for a rate cap exemption, which means that we would then be able to charge more rates than the state government tells us we're allowed to each year, if it's approved. So we're trying really hard to operate in our means, but I want to be sure that we haven't affected services, and I'm also love some comment on staff morale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I can confirm that we've followed the direction received from Council, which was not to cut services at this stage. That may be potentially something we need to look at down the track, but at this stage, that saving of $1.35 million has been achieved without significant or substantial change to service delivery. The majority of that saving has come through savings achieved through our materials and services budget, and I'll pay credit to Director Buckley and her team and Director Natalie, or Director Cook, for the work that they've done. So if I talk about a couple of the highlights, so particularly in our operations team, we've identified very significant savings in our materials and services budget by essentially bringing works in-house. So you heard an example earlier this evening, which was around the drain cleaning trailer, but there's lots of initiatives in the outdoor operations team and maintenance team where they're looking at what are the works that historically have been done by consultants and contractors that we could sensibly deliver in-house. So there's been a real rebalancing of the team, real strong focus on efficiency, and quite a significant chunk of that saving of $1.35 million has come from our operations team, so credit to that team. But across the two directorates, they've really taken a pencil and a sharpened pencil to their whole materials and services budget and looked at every single opportunity without impacting on service delivery to say, where can we sharpen the pencil, where have we potentially got funds in our draft budget or in our operating budgets that we're able to operate without. It does present a challenge next year, so it's one thing presenting a budget, a draft budget. Once it's adopted, we then need to deliver against it. So it does present a challenge to say, okay, we've put up a budget, but it's going to be harder to contain our delivery within the budget. So we look forward to working together with Council next year to make sure that we can, whatever budget is adopted in June, we can actually stay within the confines of that budget. But yeah, credit to the team. They did a significant amount of work. I was on leave in January and a lot of that work happened while I was on leave. So well done, team. And we were joking about maybe I should take leave more often and leave the team to the hard yards. But yeah, $1.35 million, it's recurring savings, so it's year on year, and it's had a very significant impact on the financial sustainability challenge that we shared with Council back in September.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy, and also to our executive and managers and all the people who've worked so hard on this. I'm glad you picked up on the follow-on, because this is a bit of a complicated question. I'm sorry, there's no notice. So we'll have, after the end of, or when we're doing the budget for the 27-28 financial year, we'll have this one, we'll have a bit more of an idea of how we're going. And my question, it's a bit of a crystal ball really, but it's about whether the steps we've taken we might be able to reduce the ongoing savings, like reach the 1.5, because we've got the experience and then we're a bit more accurate.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure I 100% understand the question. However, let me explain the change that's occurred. So back in September, we presented a long-term financial plan. And very broadly, over the next 10 years, we were predicting an overspend of $2 million a year. So every year of the 10-year financial plan, we were predicting that the money leaving council was $2 million more than is coming in. With the work that the team has done and the savings of $1.35 million, we've taken a chunk out of that problem. Yeah. So we're not out of the woods yet. We believe we're overspending by about $600,000 a year at this stage. So we've made significant inroads into improving or bringing council's financial sustainability onto a level keel, but we've still got some work to do. So we've done as much as we believe we can on materials and services without cutting service delivery. We've delivered that following council's instruction. We haven't made any staff redundant. We've tried to work within the constraints of the staffing that we've got. So at this point, we've squeezed the organisation as hard as we believe we can without impacting on service delivery or staffing. And of course, the next question then from council is, well, how are we going to deliver the additional $600,000 per year ongoing saving in order to achieve financial sustainability?
That's a far better answer than my question was trying to elicit anyway. It was an unthoughtful question. I'm happy to take this one to the vote if nobody has any other comment. Oh, Councillor Smith? No. Oh, yeah, sorry. Oh, you're ready. Oh, you're jumping the gun. Okay, well, all those in favour of the recommendation? Beautiful. That is carried unanimously. And again, thank you everybody for all the effort that went in. Okay, Mr Jeremy's going to leave the room. We are moving on to 8.3.7 and he has left at 7:04. Ms Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This item relates to item 8.3.7, being the independent member for the CEO Employment and Remuneration Committee. Council's required to maintain a Chief Executive Officer employment and remuneration policy in accordance with Section 45 of the Local Government Act. The reviewed and updated version of this policy was adopted by Council in December 2025. The policy provides for an appointment of an independent member to support the committee and provide technical expertise to that committee. A request for quotation for an independent member was released to the market in February to see quotations from suitably qualified and experienced consultants to provide professional advice in relation to the matters dealt with under the CEO Employment Remuneration Policy in accordance with the Act. This RFQ was listed on Council's tender website, and known consultants in the field were also contacted and directed to the quotation on the website, on the tender website, and its scope and documentation. 6 quotations and proposals were received through this tender process, and 3 consultants were shortlisted and interviewed for proposed approach and delivery methods. And following a full evaluation, assessment and reference check process, Margaret Devlin from the Centre for Organisational Development is recommended to Council for appointment to this committee. Ms Devlin brings significant experience across multiple government sectors and understands the significance of local government and its responsibility for delivering a wide range of economic, environmental, infrastructure and human services. The support program is aimed at supporting and enhancing the critical roles of leadership and governance of local communities, and we believe it will add valuable perspective and value to Council. It is recommended that Council approves the appointment of Margaret Devlin as independent member on the CEO Employment Remuneration Committee for a period of 3 years, with a further 1-year contract option and a maximum 4-year contract value, and delegates the signing of the contract to myself, the Director of Corporate and Community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Cook. Councillors, mover and a seconder. Moved Councillor Anderson, seconded Councillor Graham. Councillor Anderson.
I'm on the committee, on this committee, and I found it really insightful on how the committee works and how it brings recommendations forward to council. The CEO is the head of this organisation, and we as councillors are responsible for Will's employment and also his KPIs, which actually will direct him and the whole organisation further down based on our council plan. I think it's really important that we make sure when we have a chair who's helping guide us with those recommendations, that they have a really good insight and really good at guiding us and make sure we're making the right recommendations, that therefore we're accountable to the community as councillors and what we're doing heading this organisation. I think me personally, I'm new to this role as a councillor, and to have someone who can really help us nail this is really important, and it makes us more accountable. So I think it'd be really good to have Margaret there. Margaret, I've got her name right, haven't I? And I recommend that we take this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Smith? Oh, sorry, it was Councillor Graham anyway. No. Nothing to add?
No, I was part of this selection panel for the 3 people that we interviewed, and Margaret Devlin was a unanimous choice from the 3 of us that interviewed. She comes highly recommended, has a wealth of knowledge and experience, and she's going to make a significant contribution to our council.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Any other comments or questions from others? We'll take this one to the vote then. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mary. You are, yeah, you're good at this. And we will move on to Mr Jeremy returns to the chamber at 7:09, and we move on to item 8.3.8, financial reserve.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This item regards the financial reserves and restricted cash policy. Strategic Lever 1 of the Alpine Shire Council Financial Sustainability Strategy states that to remain financially sustainable, Council must generate sufficient cash from operating activities to fund its planned capital works program and maintain adequate balances of cash reserves. As part of this strategic lever, an action was identified in the strategy to develop a financial reserves and restricted cash policy. This would set a level of unrestricted cash that would allow Council to respond to emerging risks, pressures and opportunities. A financial reserves and cash restriction policy, which I will hereforth just call the policy, has been drafted to ensure a consistent and formalised process around financial reserves and to establish this target for unrestricted cash. The policy and proposed new reserves have been reviewed by external consultants AEC who have been assisting us and assessed against both FinPro and the Victorian Auditor General's Office advice. The policy provides a framework for the governance of statutory and discretionary reserves. This includes guidance around the creation, maintenance and closure of reserves. The policy also includes the detail of 3 new discretionary reserves proposed to assist in capturing restricted funds. The reserves proposed to be established are a capital works carry forward reserve, an employee entitlement reserve and an advanced federal financial assistance grant reserve. All new reserves are to be established at the date of Council approval. However, the initial funding of these reserves will happen on 30 June 2026 to accurately represent the year-end balance. The policy also defines unrestricted cash as cash and financial assets, less all financial reserves, trust fund and deposits and unspent conditional grants. A targeted level of unrestricted cash has been defined as equal to or greater than $10 million. Details on the reserves and unrestricted cash are to be reported to the Audit and Risk Committee quarterly, either as part of the quarterly budget report or at the end of each financial year. To note, these quarterly budget reports are also reported to Council quarterly and are public documents. It is recommended that Council adopts the financial reserves and restricted cash policy, approves the establishment of the following discretionary financial reserves, being the Capital Works Carryover Reserve, the Employee Entitlement Reserve and the Advanced Federal Financial Assistance Grant Reserve, and signs and seals the financial reserves and cash restricted cash policy at the appropriate stage of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Cook. Councillors. Moved Councillor Byrne, seconded Councillor Anderson. Councillor Byrne.
Director Cook or maybe CEO Will, the Employee Entitlements Reserve has been set at 25% of employee leave entitlements. Is this enough? And secondly, what is the current rate of staff turnover?
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Perhaps I can answer half of it, then I'll pass the administrative bit to Director Cook. We had very significant staff turnover, as Council's aware, over recent years into the 20-25%, which had a significant drag on the organisation's ability to deliver for the community. What I'm really pleased to report is that issue now looks like it is well behind us. So last year, from recollection, our turnover was 14%, reported at the end of the financial year in the annual report. We haven't got the figures for this year yet, but my expectation is it will be well below 10%. And what we're seeing within the organisation is very low turnover rates, high retention, and when we do advertise a job, I think the external climate has changed significantly as well. We get a large number of applicants for the roles in council. So from the perspective of running the organisation as an executive team, the climate is very significantly different from where we were sitting perhaps 2 or 3 years ago. I'll hand over to Director Cook in terms of is 25% provision sufficient and what has driven that percentage.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. We do believe that 25% as an employee entitlement reserve is sufficient. To provide some context, 25% of current employee provisions is around $495,000. Last financial year, with a reduced amount of employee turnover, we paid out $70,000 worth of provisions. This year to date, we've paid out $112,000 worth of provisions. So both figures are well under the amount of the considered balance of the 25% of the employee entitlements reserve. And the way the 25% was calculated was to reflect the historic staff turnover rates. And to balance the amount of cash we may need for other operational requirements. If we considered a higher balance in that reserve, we can run the risk of over-restricting our cash and over-restricting our items unnecessarily, which means we then can't use them for other priorities. So it's finding a bit of a balance between what is prudent restriction of our cash beyond over-restricting it and leaving no flexibility for council to operate. Thank you.
Councillor Anderson?
No comments.
No, anybody else? Questions, comments? I've got a question, and might end up being a comment after my last question. So this is new, having reserves, and I think it's really terrific that we can start identifying the money that we have that otherwise looks like surplus. And I guess that's really my question, is will this help us manage that perception that we've got a great big surplus, so we should be doing a lot more for the community?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So what this does is it helps us identify in our cash balance what is actually prudent for us not to spend. So we do have reserves currently. We currently have a mix of statutory reserves, so they're reserves that we must have for holding money, and we have a discretionary reserve in the Dinner Plain Reserve. That's actually a discretionary reserve, not a statutory reserve. However, without us having a better understanding of what our forward commitments for cash are, it is easy for it to look like we have more flexible available cash than we actually do. It doesn't really help with explaining to the community about the difference between an operating surplus and an underlying deficit, but it does help if you're looking at our cash tables and saying, well, council's got $30 million of cash. When we have these reserves in place and we've set a restricted target, it helps us say, yes, but we can't spend below this amount because this amount is needed for certain purposes, and those purposes are documented and we're managing it. So that's the real purpose of the policy, is for us to have that clarity and explanation about how much we really need to be maintaining to have a prudent cash position.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions? No. We'll take this to the vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Super. And we move on to our statutory planning, 8.3.9.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 8.3.9 is our statutory planning service delivery update for April. And this provides an update to Council on progress since the report we provided to Council meeting in October 2025 on the implementation of a program of works to improve our delivery of statutory planning services to our community. As you would remember, in June 2025, at that ordinary council meeting, we provided a report that council noted regarding reforms being undertaken to improve the organisation's statutory planning service delivery. And biannual reporting against that report was part of the program of reporting going forward. This report now provides for the second biannual report against that, those improvements that were foreshadowed in June 2025. The second phase of the reforms have now been embedded, and we have new initiatives which facilitate more responsive customer service and application efficiency. We will provide a further report in October 2026. The statutory planning team is now fully resourced, and we have no reliance on external consultancy in the provision of our core services. This continuity of resourcing supports a greater technical efficiency and knowledge building in the processing of applications internally. Between May of 2025 and September 2025, Council processed a high number of planning applications, and while this initial uplift of processing has stabilised, the overall number of live applications has continued to reduce. In the report, we've set out the detail of the number of applications which have been processed in the 6 months previous to this report. In addition to the improved processing of applications, we've implemented a number of customer service priorities. Our statutory planning team continues to receive a large number of inquiries each week, many of which are complex and take time to investigate. However, we continue to build on changes that were implemented up until October 2025, and we have successfully established the following. We now have a planner on-call roster, which is successfully implemented and operated each working day. This means that if anyone calls into the office or calls into our customer service team and wishes to speak to a planner, there is a dedicated planner on roster who is available to take phone calls. Of course, should that planner already be on a phone call, you may not be able to be put straight through, but there is always someone available then to take the phone call once they are again free. Council has also commenced and is running our planner and resident sessions in Myrtleford and Mount Beauty, and these enable people who aren't based in or around Bright to have a face-to-face meeting a little bit closer to home, potentially in Myrtleford or Mount Beauty. These are going to be set up to be recurring dates throughout the year. We will have a planner and residents available at Myrtleford Library on the first Tuesday of every month in the afternoon, and we will have a planner and residents available at the Mount Beauty Library on the first Wednesday of each month in the afternoon. Should anyone wish to meet with a planner in Bright, then the same process applies unchanged, in that you can make an appointment to come in and meet someone in Bright at any time. We are progressing and will be implementing the undertaking of customer surveys between July and September this year to provide us with more data on how we can improve as part of our continuous improvement program in this area. We are also in the process of planning out our developer and consultant forums, which was foreshadowed in the October 2025 report. A central area of focus has been the review and development of standardised service delivery and process priorities, and in the report we've also documented delivery against our set KPIs which Council approved in the last meeting. Although we've not yet quite hit our targets on our 2025 to 2026 KPIs, all indicators are tracking in the right direction. The recommendation on this report is that Council notes the progress and the further actions which have been undertaken by the statutory planning team to improve statutory planning service delivery and our overall customer experience in this space. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Cook. Councillor Smoother and a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Smith. Councillor Byrne.
I commend you for the planner in residence in Myrtleford and Mount Beauty. Can you let me know how long has that been operating? Are residents using the service, and do they require a booking if they want to attend?
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. The service has been operational since prior to the last report in October. We did have quite low numbers for a period there. However, that does mean that if you wish to attend, there should be space for you to attend each of these sessions. And we have had some slight issues with the booking calendar too. So if anyone's gone on and had a look at the booking calendar and been unable to book, I'm very sorry about that. Hopefully we've got that fixed now. However, the numbers have been quite low, but that's okay, as long as it's steady. We would recommend that people book, not because you have to, but if somebody is ahead of you and their application inquiries may take a little bit of time, these can be quite complex and not generally quick to understand the technical detail to give robust information. So you may have someone in front of you who maybe is going to be speaking with a planner for upwards of half an hour. So it will probably be in your interest to book if you wish to have a space. However, there's nothing to stop you dropping
in. Finally, I know there's been some fantastic work done to really try to meet the KPIs for planning permits. Can you say how long is the average processing time per permit currently?
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. So our average number of days to determine a planning application at the moment is 79 statutory days. It does depend a little bit, though, on the complexity of the application. So notably, some applications are being processed very quickly. However, you know, the average does also include those dates. I would also like to point out that our actual data for October to March KPIs is being skewed somewhat to look worse than it is on average. And that is because as we are progressing a number of the historic complex applications that have been outstanding, some of them for a few years or a couple of years, those dates obviously are skewing the average processing dates and things like that as well. So on average, we're doing much better, but it does depend a little bit on the individual experience regarding how complex your application might be.
Thank you, Director Cook. I'd like to commend you and your team on the drastic improvement you've made to the planning department currently. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. We have a fabulous statutory planning department who are working really hard and putting in place some really fantastic improvement. So thank you. I will pass that on.
Yep. I think everyone here concurs. Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, just to reiterate on Councillor Byrne, he sort of covered everything off there in your answers on his questions. But yeah, just some really good trends there on the stats that we've got. And yeah, just really want to acknowledge the team that we've, that's one of the things I was really personally wanted to have some improvement, and we can see some stats that really showing we're going in the right direction, which is great. So well done.
Any other councillors like to ask a question or make a comment? No?
Through you, Madam Mayor, if I may ask a question of Director Cook relating to the questions on notice we had earlier. The planner in residence, Natalie, if a member of the community had a business interest or was interested in investment, would the planner in residence, despite the name planner, would they be able to provide advice across a range of permitting requirements relating to a business interest?
Thank you, Will. The planner in residence is a planner who is rostered to be on call every day to ensure that we always have someone that can take phone calls from general inquiries that come in. We actually have a senior planning officer who is dedicated to undertaking business-specific applications. So should somebody come in with a business-specific application, then one of our senior planners is allocated all business-specific applications. It may not go to the planner in residence. Having said that, a senior statutory planner has a very good understanding across council of the interfaces across council and can provide general advice, or at least point in the right direction of how we will get more holistic advice should should the inquiry be less related to planning but have interfaces with other departments. For example, we could have interfaces with departments like our local laws department about permitting. There could be permitting questions that need to be addressed through our environmental health department. And we do that work internally to bring people together. And if it's a pre-application meeting that may require more than just a statutory planner, then yes, we do that work internally to identify what that might be. On occasion, we even bring in referral authorities to have those pre-application meetings. For example, we may bring in someone from one of the state government departments who may have an interface with it and do pre-applications together. So yes, we do work through that. Even though the individual is a planner, we do try to take a holistic view on what might be required from council.
Thank you, Director Cook. And one follow-up question, if I may. In a scenario of an investor from outside the Shire who is not familiar with the way that the Alpine Shire Council works, yet they're interested in potentially investing in the Shire, how would they gain access to the business concierge? How would they know where to go to get the kind of support that you've just described?
So thank you, Will. My expectation is that somebody who's coming in to the organisation through our customer service centre, if they come in and request to have a meeting with someone or have a discussion about potential investment, that would be raised up to one of the more senior managers to make an assessment. So if that was undertaken, then we would make an assessment internally on what the requirement is, what information's needed and who the best person to meet with is. We're a reasonably small organisation. We can do that work internally to make sure we've made the right fit. Should the inquiry come in a different way, it could be a little less obvious how that gets funneled through the organisation. I would encourage anyone who has a general inquiry who doesn't have a specific contact for that inquiry to actually make contact through our customer service area. Your inquiry is logged, it is in the system, it gets a reference number, it's assigned, it is tracked, we can follow where it goes. Yep.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for humouring me, and thank you, Natalie Cook.
Very, very good questions, Mr. Jeremy. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add after that? Oh, Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Mrs Mayor. Just a bit of a statement. Given where we were 12 months ago, it's pleasing to see a significant improvement has been made. And that does not mean we should just sit back and congratulate ourselves, but to continue to strive for excellence. Then it will be a win for everybody.
Thank you. Absolutely. Anything further? Nothing else to add, Councillor Byrne? Okay, we'll take this to the vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Super. And we move on to 8.3.10.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 8.3.10 is our biannual reporting of community engagement campaigns and outcomes. So within our Council Plan 2025 to 2029, we committed to bringing a biannual report to Council regarding our community engagement. And this is part of our focus on improving how we engage with our community and to support the customer-focused Alpine objective within the Council Plan. So the purpose of this report is to provide a summary of all engagement activities undertaken between October 2025 and March 2026, October 2025 being the date that our Council Plan was adopted, and March being the 6-month period from then, which focuses on our participation and reach, including the number of projects which were delivered, people reached, submissions received, and other key engagement statistics. By regularly reporting these metrics, Council aims to build a better understanding of its engagement efforts and provide visibility to the community of how the community is invited to participate across a range of projects and topics. The report itself is quite detailed and goes into each project, the engagement period and the outcomes, engagement and submissions from those projects. I'm not going to go to those in any detail, but I do encourage anyone who has a specific interest in that level of detail to read the report. The report is very simply written, provides a lot of very interesting data. In summary, between that October and March date, Council ran 15 community engagement opportunities, which provided a range of ways for the community to have a say on key plans, strategies and projects. The engagement topics covered a broad cross-section of Council's work, which included access and inclusion, strategic and statutory planning, sport and recreation facilities, assets and financial planning, environment and climate action, transport and road safety, community infrastructure, tourism and events, urban design and place-based improvements. All surveys, submissions, forms, feedback opportunities were made available via our online community engagement platform called Engage Alpine. As well, though, we provided items in print form through our customer service centre in Bright, our libraries in Bright, Mount Beauty and Myrtleford. This ensures that community members can participate regardless of access to digital services. We supplement our engagement, we support our engagement with a mix of market pop-ups, drop-in sessions, direct stakeholder engagement and targeted email campaigns, and enable participation in ways that suit different needs and preferences. I'd really encourage people who are interested and able to use digital formats to register as a user on Alpine Engage. We currently have 1,838 registered users, and this provides us with reliable tracking and reporting of online participation. It also ensures that if there is something in particular you're interested in receiving information on, that you'll get it directly to your inbox as well. While the Alpine Engage process allows us for consistent measurement of digital engagement, it does mean that it also is slightly more challenging for us to quantify our reach of our informal engagement processes than our face-to-face engagement. So the documentation that you have and the statistics that you see are skewed towards digital engagement simply because that's easier for us to count. However, we do engage across a range of formats to really encourage as much engagement as we can get. Something that is worth pointing out is that in addition to formal project engagement, Council supports community awareness and participation through a range of broader communication activities. So during the reporting period, so during those 6 months, we put out 78 media releases, which are both published on Council's website and distributed to local media outlets to promote our engagement opportunities. We share news updates, key changes and information as well. We also published 400 social media posts across Facebook and Instagram, and we achieved a targeted social media reach of almost 400,000 viewers across the 6 months. These communication channels complement the project-specific engagement we undertake by broadening our reach and supporting our community awareness across the Shire. The issues that we have identified, however, so in reviewing our engagement activities throughout this reporting highlight, it's actually helped us highlight and identify several opportunities to strengthen our engagement going forward. So, for example, in one instance, engagement was undertaken as part of a consultant-led project, and we did not involve a small number of key stakeholders early in the process. So this resulted in significant concern when the key document was released. This has reinforced the importance of Council maintaining clear expectations, oversight and quality assurance for our engagement activities. Also, during the reporting period, one of the challenges that have been highlighted is our engagement volume and timing. So during February and March, Council ran up to 6 engagement opportunities concurrently, which can contribute to engagement fatigue for some community members. So while this reflects a high level of council activity and opportunity to participate, it does highlight the need for us to continue to improve our coordination, scheduling and staging of engagement where possible, so that we can support meaningful participation and manage our community's capacity to co-engage with us. And these learnings will inform future engagement planning and support our improvement in how we engage with our community. So the recommendation is that Council receives and notes the biannual community engagement results detailed in this report, which ended on the 31st of March 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Cook. And councillors. Moved by Councillor Byrne and seconded by Councillor Anderson. Councillor Byrne.
Director Cook, to ensure that the community engagement campaigns remain robust, do we provide clear input to what happened to community feedback? And secondly, do we publish how public input actually changed policy?
Thank you, Councillor Burns. There are 2 parts to that, potentially. When an individual engages through Engage Alpine, should they indicate through their the way they've set up their profile or the engagement itself that they wish to receive updates, then yes, they do receive updates on how their engagement is being considered and the outcome of that engagement. Whenever we present a report to Council where we're seeking adoption of a document which has been subject to community engagement, within those reports we always outline what engagements have been undertaken, the feedback and the submissions we've received and how that feedback has influenced the end product. All of those reports are publicly available documents.
Councillor Anderson.
No questions.
Thank you again. Councillor Graham, nothing? No. I think we all know how important community engagement is, and I think it's fantastic how much effort we put into it, and certainly I see that or feel that it enriches our planning and what we go forward with, and helps with communities understanding what we're doing. So congratulations to the team for making it all happen. And we'll take this one to the vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. And that is the last of our directors' items tonight. Well done, not just presenting them all, unanimous, but getting them ready. Huge amount of work. Okay, we move on to item 9, which is informal meetings of councillors. Councillors, we have 3 briefing sessions listed there, and the recommendation is that the summary of informal meetings of councillors for March and April 2026 be received. Mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Ronco and seconded by Councillor Byrne. Anything to add? No? Anything, questions for anybody? We'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? Yep, beautiful. We move on to presentation of reports by delegates. And I will start on my right with Councillor Byrne. Councillor Ronco?
Nothing to add.
I'm going to go to the one in the middle, Councillor Graham.
Nothing to report this meeting.
Councillor Anderson. Councillor Smith. And neither have I. We go then to general business, and I'm going to start the other end. Councillor Smith.
Again, nothing on that one.
Councillor Anderson. Councillor Ronco.
Yes. Just I wanted to add, even it was a bit mentioned with our engagements, but yep, right now we still have the tourism and event strategy workshop going on that you could register via Engage Alpine to attend to this workshop, which is very important, and it's very important strategy for the future direction of our Shire. So I invite again community to be more engaged and to register for this workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. You took mine. Councillor Byrne.
Nothing to it.
Councillor Graham.
I've got nothing, no.
That means we can, Councillor Mr Jeremy. It's late.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've got two very short ones. I'd like to acknowledge and extend thanks to the Rotary Club of Bright for their generous support to the outdoor fitness equipment, and advise the community that Tuesday next week, the 5th of May at 10 o'clock, we've got an opening ceremony down at the exercise equipment, which is outside the Bright Community Centre. I'd like to quickly acknowledge our team. So Matt Zagorski was the project manager, and he was ably supported by Drew, Christoph, and of course Sarah in the room here. So they did a fantastic job on behalf of the community and worked really well with the Rotary Club of Bright. And a second very quick one, the Bright skate park upgrades. Our project manager was Chris Hall, and Chris worked again really well with Drew, Christoph and Sarah to deliver a really good outcome for the community. So two really good projects delivered in collaboration with the community, which we're very proud to have delivered this year.
Good.
Thank you. Bringing that to everyone's attention, Mr Jeremy. We move on to item 12, motions for which notice has previously been given, and there are none. 13 is reception and reading of petitions. There are none. 14 is documents for signing and sealing, and we have 3. So we have a recommendation that the following documents be signed and sealed: the Information Privacy Policy, Instruments of Delegation and Financial Reserves and Restricted Cash Policy. Councillors, not moved, Councillor Anderson. Second, Councillor Byrne. Thank you. All those in... Does anyone want to talk about them? No. No questions. All those in favour?
No.
Thank you. Oh, the screen's disappeared. And we move on to confidential reports. There are none. Closure of meeting. And I am going to congratulate our visitors from the Kiewa Valley, Mr Keith and Ms Mary Pike, for staying the distance. Thank you very much, and I'll close the meeting at 7:42.